Hello everyone. I thought since the game is starting and everything that I'd show everyone a bit of what my creative process is and how I come up with my games and things like this. And I am going to be preparing the next scenario, which is the rewriting of the verse of Nicholas Flamel now. Okay, so writing a scenario for like writing a scenario for going back in the past and stuff like this can be a bit tricky because you've got to in this game you've got to balance a few things at the same time. So first of all, you've got to take into account the time period, and you've got to take into account the person whose life has been rewritten. So I've done a bit of reading on Nicholas Flamel and everything, but because the game is fiction, I'm going to take a bit of creative liberties with all of this. So, for example, Nicholas Flamel was actually really not an alchemist, even though it's what he's famous for. And and in the game, he totally has access to he's a famous alchemist and everything. And the second thing you've got to take into account is that the entire scenario somehow has to have something to do with the magical power that is being rewritten. So the magical power is what we've got here. That's a description of it. So you've got the light side, which is called solve and coagula, which is an alchemical term for dissolving things and reassembling them. It's an alchemical process. And the dark side is caput corvi, which means the head of the crow, which is also an alchemical process. It's about decomposition and decay and things like this. So we gotta try to work those in the themes. And after that, there's a couple of themes that I want to explore for this scenario. First of all, Nicholas Flamel was rich, and I want to try to use this for just a little bit. So we're gonna have the theme of wealth that is going to come to play, and we're also going to have the theme of alchemy and science. And third of all, I want to what's important about the Neo Hermes and what I'd like to present through this story is that the Neo Hermes have a lot to do with secrets and codes and stuff like this. So usually when they were talking to each other through messages, they were doing it with encryptions. So the goal of the scenario, the first part, is going to be about finding the skull, which was hidden by Albert the Great. And that skull was hidden by a Neo Hermes. So there's a code to hide it. So we're going to have a code and encryptions. All right, and those are the themes that we're going to be working with here. So there's a couple of things that I want to do with those themes. I was thinking Jonathan's character, Eric, still hesitates a lot about what he wants, about whether or not he trusts the Hermes or the Neo Hermes. He doesn't really know who the good guys are. So I want to try to use the scenario as a sort of example of the shit that the Hermes do. So one of the actors is going to be, let's see, it's going to be the Anubis. And the Anubis are actually an actual part of the official scenario for Nicholas Flamel that happens in the present, because he's a past life. In this game, you can play as him reincarnated in the year 2000. Okay, so the Anubis are going to play into the themes of alchemy and science and code and encryption. The idea is they're going to try to find where the group is, to track them down in the past, and to try to kill them because of the difference in ideals between the Neo Hermes and the Hermes, we're going to like underline that they are all about hiding knowledge from humanity and stuff like this. So yeah, that's how they're going to come into play. And then there's another group that is going to be around here, which are the devoured. And the devoured, they are another 8. They are mean. Basically, those guys are like they worship a dead god, which was dismembered completely, and they got powers from worshiping this god, and those powers come in the form of self-scarification, and that means that like when they hurt themselves, they gain supernatural powers for it. Usually it means that they have less life points than the people that they're fighting, but in exchange, they can be pretty dreadful. And just the fact of seeing a devourer use their powers can be really intimidating. And basically, they think that the skull that has been hunted for is the head of their god. They're wrong, but you know they usually are all over the official game. And so they're going to come into play, and they are going to, I think that I want them to tie into the wealth. So what I want to do, I was thinking that I could have somehow wealth become sort of like the point of morality of this verse, because you've got to put that into the scenario too. You've got to have like a sort of philosophy behind it that you want the players to figure out. And this idea that the wealth is that basically it's going to be like the main resource of the players. They are going to be facing against 2 opponents that are going to be like really big. Okay, so in order, like they are going to have numbers for the devoured, and the Anubis are going to have like supernatural powers that are going to be difficult to evade. And the players are going to start with a lot of wealth from like being Nicholas Flamel, being rich. And I want that wealth to actually work against them, because, well, since Nicholas Flamel got a fake reputation from being an alchemist because he was rich, I was thinking that I could actually play on that. And so what I'm going to have, I think, is I'm going to have the devoured spread rumors of Nicholas Flamel being super rich and trying to make him famous for it by being like, oh, he's an alchemist. He's got all of these cool stuff. He's discovered the Philosopher's Stone. Spread the news. And so the townfolks of Paris are going to flock to that. And every time that they see Flamel in the streets, they're going to share this information, and it's going to spread like wildfire. And so the devoured will be able to track the player's movements thanks to that wealth. And so basically the players are going to have to find a way to counter that. So I think that there's going to be a few options that I want them to have. They can spend the wealth, and they can give it away. And like, I'm gonna let them be creative with how they deal with it. But basically, the scenario, it's going to look like it revolves around finding the skull in the first part, and then keeping it safe, because the skull has inside of it a trapped diva. Nicholas Flamel found out that Albert the Great was, let's see, yeah, that Albert the Great was Yeah, he was a new hermit, and he had failed his attempt to make his work in white work properly. So that destroyed his lab, and that trapped the diva inside of a random object inside of his laboratory, which was the skull. And all throughout his life, Albert the Great tried to free the diva, and he didn't manage it. This is like official lore from the game. And Flamel finds the skull, and he tries to free the diva once again. And he also fails. But towards the end of his life, he hides it again. And so basically, once this scenario is over, there's going to be another scenario for the players, which is probably not going to be played by my game. It's going to be played by Jeremy's game, where the players have to find that skull in the material world, in the present, and they have to find a new way to free it with the new researches in alchemy that will be possible. And it's going to tie into another character. So like right now, that means that like I'm going to be planting seeds in this game for a future scenario too, because you gotta think ahead when you're preparing for scenarios too, like this. Okay, so it's going to look like this scenario is about the skull, and it could be. The rewriting of the verse could be all about keeping the skull safe, and I think I want to underline this with an option for the players. So what I'm going, okay. So what I want players to be able to do is for the players to have access to the skull and its power source. Okay. What this means, basically, it complicates the entire thing because my players, they're still new. Their characters are fresh, and their characters don't have a lot of a lot of karma. So they might run out in a difficult combat. And since they're against Anubis who have dreadful powers, devoured who have dreadful powers, and there's a lot of them, they might end up in a situation where one of them is out of karma, and they still want to cast a verse. And the skull, since it has a diva inside of it, the skull might be a power source. So it could have, I think I'm going to give it like 3 points of karma. But if the players spend all of that karma, the diva dies and the scenario fails. So it's game over. So they have to be actually careful what they do with the skull as a power as a power source. And in the meantime, I also want there to be a possibility for the morality of rewriting the verse to be about the wealth itself. And yeah, so this way it plays into the themes. And the last aspect is the code and encryption. So we gotta find a way, see if, I mean, like, it's pretty obvious, I guess. The good action that the players can do can be cracking the code. So that can also be a light verse. So basically, I'm going to need to have to encrypt some things for this scenario. Okay. Next, because we are playing in Paris, I am going to want to do something a bit original with that. It's Paris in the it's Paris like way back. I think like Nicolas Flamel was in 1400s, and so like a lot of the landmarks aren't there, which is a shame because for a Paris scenario you want to have like fights into landmarks and stuff like this. But there are a couple of things that were still around. So we're going to write down our places, and this is going to be like setting and places where we have fight scenes. So unfortunately, no fight scene in front of, no fight scene on top of the Eiffel Tower. It wasn't built yet. But onions. And and possibly something that has to do with code encryption and science is going to be the labs. Of the dogs. I'm done killing dogs for now. But it's going to be about the labs that the Herbies have. And yeah, okay. So right now, we have our themes. What I usually do is that I build on the themes. And then I work from there on what I want to do. So, okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to think about how it starts. And what is important is that I want Jonathan to have the opportunity for his character to refuse taking his working white before the players go into the Great Book, which means that he'll be accepting. I gave him the option. I talked to him about it. He'll be accepting the idea. He'll be accepting to not play in that scenario and not be there, which would suck for the player, because then he just spends like a couple of game sessions with his character just being in the present, and there isn't a lot happening in the present right now. I could make some stuff happen, but I've got an option for him. I was thinking, if he refuses to take his working white before the rewriting of the verse starts, then what could happen is that he could end up being, is that Kaua, who is like a bit more devious than he lets on. He has access to the video feed of the telescope, so he's able to observe the telescope even without being in the vault room. And he's going to be able to see something because he gets a bird's eye view on the entire story. And he's going to have access to, he's going to be able to see like that the players are in danger towards the very beginning of the verse. Like they're about to be ambushed by, I want to start with the Anubis. Yeah. Okay, so ambush. Okay, arrow. Yeah. And so basically, Eric will have the option of like, oh shit, they're about to get killed. I can take my working white and join them while the convergence is still starting and save them, warn them that they're about to be attacked. And then that means that basically he'll have that choice, because Kaua is going to come to him and to be like, okay, I've got your work in white. If you take it, you can go into the Great Book. But if you don't, I'm going to take it. And it might not work because it's fine-tuned for the person who's supposed to take it. So it's fine-tuned for Eric, but it could work on Kaua with unpredictable side effects. So once he's given this choice, Eric will have to choose between continuing to refuse the call, which is what he's been doing from a narrative standpoint for a while, and embracing saving his friends. So the first thing we're going to have a first attack. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. Important to color code these things. First attack. Okay. And we want to showcase that the Anubis are evil, so we are going to need to have them capture or kill other players or their allies. Okay, good. After that, we okay, yeah, so that's how we start. After that, we have to find skull. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so the skull is there. So that's going to play into the encryptions. And okay. No, wait, freehand. Okay. So the skull starts playing into the encryptions. So the players, they're going to incarnate in, I think, bodies of a few neo-Hermes, and then there's going to be some neo-Hermes who don't have one of the members of Project Attention in them. And so that means those players are going to have, it means that those players, those characters will be able to like, to tell the players, oh, this is your name. And oh, like I'll have to slip those into the conversation. And there will be this entire moment when they get the, and then they'll be able to tell them, okay, so we've been looking for the skull for a while, and now we gotta find this skull. And since it was hidden by neo-Hermes, like there's going to be codes and encryption. And then I think I'm going to hide the skull in the catacombs, okay? Which would be a great moment once they find the skull for the devoured to arrive and to start attacking them, like being bad guys, just trying to steal the skull. This can be a good moment for the access to the skull as a power source where the players are sort of blocked off and they have to find a way out of this situation because they're like in the catacombs fighting like bad guys. And using the skull might be one of the only ways that they can escape. And then maybe, oh yeah, that's gonna be good. Okay, so what we do is that we have, what we're gonna have is skull doesn't speak at first. But starts speaking. Okay, good. The skull doesn't start speaking at first, but starts speaking if the players spend 1 karma point during this fight to say, oh, they're gonna kill me. Good one. Okay. And then basically the players have the skull and they're expecting the verse to end because now they're away from it and they're free. But plot twist, it doesn't end there. Okay, so is the first. I could have the first attack in a monument of some sort. I'll have to research exactly what monuments were built in that time and give them like a really cool looking one. Let's see. One where they can like walk around on it and do stunts. Yeah. Okay. Now that's when the wealth comes into play. All right. So okay. So the wealth starts coming into play. I think the wealth might come into play also when they're trying to crack the codes. So before that, yeah. Okay. Yeah, this looks a bit chaotic. Okay, so how? Yeah. So basically, I think once they find the skull, it becomes about what do you do with the skull, and so you can have a bit of alchemy and science where they try new things to get the skull out. And it could be, it could be a really nice moment to have something come up. Is that Nicholas Flamel has powers of alchemy. And the players will be able to learn those powers of alchemy during this time when they're doing alchemy and science stuff. And they'll be able to learn them and use them for the rest of the game. After that, if they spend the experience points for that, it's like you can like make potions that replenish your karma and do like really cool stuff. Okay. So now okay, how do I want to design this? Basically, the players are a bit, the players have to find a way to deal with the fact that they have the skull and they have wealth and they don't know what to do. And the new Hermes are also like, okay, we got the skull, like good, life goes on. And maybe I can prepare that some more. Like I can like see what happens after we play the first thing. Yeah, just like plan a bit more in that state. But I think I should add a new player. I should add someone who will come into. Okay, it's important to have characters that represent your themes. So we're going to have a progression. We're going to have regular old people who identify Nicholas Flamel thanks to his wealth and to the reputation that's been spread by the devoured. Good, good, good. And I have a lot of images uploaded. I have a lot of people. Okay, so we're going to stop using these. I have like a lot of images that are prepared, and I can start using these. Oh, by the way, I've prepared this game a lot. For example, Philip has powers called oracles. So Philip can make prophecies, and I've got prophecies on all of these people prepared in case Phil wants to use those powers. But I'm not going to show them now because that would be too spoilery. Okay. And here we are. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So those, I can choose like one of these that I haven't used yet as one of the characters to be the Parisian. Oh, by the way, all of these people, all of these images are people who have sent me images of themselves, and I've made images so that they could be put inside of the game. You can see in the links down below my defined art, which is where you can commission me to be added to the game just like these. And I really like drawing, so I might at some point do a start group, and like I might at some point start live streaming my drawing sessions. We'll see. I've never done that before. Okay, so yeah. And how do we end that scenario? So basically, we could end it a couple of ways. Either they solve the skull in the past in the way that Nicholas Flamel couldn't, or there isn't exactly like cracking the codes would solve the first part of the scenario, or they do something with the wealth. Yeah, give it away or spend it or do something like, yeah. And what is going to be our trigger for that? Because if they don't spend it, they're going to have more fights with the devoured. How did they solve it? Well, like how, because we need an event to mark like the end, to mark the moment where everybody comes together and resolves. Like we need a climax to our story. So I think could be interesting. Because if they just give away the money, it's anticlimactic. Oh, I know. Okay, so I could use something. So Nicholas Flamel had tax problems. Okay. Yeah, that's going to be nice. Okay. So, okay. Right. So, the French state hears rumors of Nicholas Flamel having the Philosopher's Stone, and they're like, oh, shit, like that's infinite wealth. So we're going to go to his place and tax him. And I think the taxation officer could be like the most perseverant person to look for them. And that person could be followed by the Nubis or the devoured. I think it's better if they are followed by the devoured, because I want to showcase like how horrible these guys are a bit more. Yeah. Or, okay, here's what we're gonna do. If the players are captured or killed, well, no, if the players are captured, then the taxation officer is their way back to free that player or that ally. Yeah. But if nobody is captured, then it's going to be the devoured. Okay, good. So, okay. So the taxation officer, like agent, the tax agent, finds them and tries to get them to pay the state. Probably tries to convince them. Yeah. Tries to convince them to, instead of using their wealth, which the players are probably going to do to help them, to just give it to the state. And if the players refuse, we could have something interesting. Okay, if the players refuse, they get attacked. But if they're just if they decide to, then that could give them like a trigger moment to either give it away or spend it. Yeah. Wait, okay, here we go. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, and we could have him as a recurring threat, him or her or them, as a recurring threat until the player. Yeah. So basically, he is the way out for the players. Okay. Once the players are, once the players either they can resolve the scenario by through him or through poor Parisians, and they and take care of their wealth, or by successfully successfully freeing the diva from the skull. What do we want to do? Okay, so how hard do we want to make it to free the diva? Okay, so here's what I think we're going to do. We're going to make it so that freeing the diva involves ingredients that they need to steal from the Anubians. All right, good. That's great. Yeah, this way we can have a callback towards the Anubis, have them come into play into the game once again. Yeah, basically that's more or less how I prepare my scenarios. Right now, I'm going to do the boring part, which is doing research on the monuments, doing research on the codes that are hiding the skull. I need to invent new ones because Jeremy is going to use the official ones in his scenario later on. And I need to create the characters, which usually takes me a while because I'm not very good at it. Yep, I think that concludes our presentation of how I prepare my games. Perfect. Have a nice day, everyone.